Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Star-Crossed podcast. I am your host, Astrologer Meghan Rose, and I'm here this week to talk about something that has been really timely and intense and insightful for me personally, and I'm hoping that by sharing this information with all of you, that you will get a deeper understanding of one of astrology's most talked about transits, and that is the Saturn return. So I am born in 94. I am a Saturn in Pisces baby, and my Saturn is in my 11th house. So on the Star-Crossed newsletter, I'm going to be sharing, outside of this episode, information about the sign that your Saturn is in, the house that your Saturn is in. So if you are not also a Saturn in Pisces in the 11th house person, you will still hopefully gain something from this episode, but definitely check out the Star-Crossed newsletter so you can dive fully into exactly what this transit is going to mean for you based on your birth chart. So when I think about Saturn is the planet of karma, rules, regulations, restrictions. It is the planet of tasks. It's the planet that everybody tends to call Daddy Saturn because it's a little bit like the forceful holding space for your life. You tend to go through a Saturn return every 27 and a half to 30 years. So if you are someone who stays alive past your 60s, past your 90s, you'll go through more than one Saturn return. So don't think if you're listening to this, oh, I wasn't born anywhere near 1994. I mean, there's some people that I know that are like, oh, that's ancient. And then there's other people that are like, oh my God, you're such a baby, you're so young. And that is also one of the funny tricks and illusions that our Saturn return plays on us. For me personally, this was one of the first times in my life that I had even thought about my age. And I know that that's going to sound so crazy, especially because we live in such an ageist society where we are constantly put into this box as women of being told, unless you look and are and think and feel youthful, that you serve no purpose. But then we also have the crumbling of this patriarchal system where the only person that would have made those rules and regulations for us as women are the ones that are benefiting off of naivety and youth and trying to steal it, like it just feels so vampiric. And I, for the longest time, if anything, always wanted to be older. I was an only child. I was a parentified child. And to me, having spent so much time around adults, pretty much solely adults from a very young age, to me, I was like, well, I also want to have a Mike's Hard Lemonade. I also want to be driving the Jeep. I also want to be able to do all of these things that everybody that I was around was doing. And, even like I joke around now with my friends about how back in New England we had this ice cream parlor chain called Friendly's. And me and all of my girlfriends from like 14 to 17 after high school, we would go to Friendly's for their $5 lunch deals for kids. And at a certain point, they caught on because most of my friends were very well endowed and looked much older than our age, but I always looked so much younger. Like I had these little buck teeth and, still to this day, like not well endowed. And it was such a funny thing now looking back on it, but at the time I was so pissed because they would hand out regular adult menus to everybody in our friend group, and then they would come over and bring me a kids menu. And my friends were jealous of me because they wanted the cheap meal, but I was so jealous of everybody else because I wanted to look and be and feel older than I did. It like didn't align with my mentality and my emotional intelligence at that point, and it almost felt like the vessel that I was in wasn't an accurate representation of who I felt like I was. And you know, you get over that hump, obviously, like after a certain age. It's like, yeah, you're getting carded maybe more than your friends. But for me, I didn't think I felt old until I hit my Saturn return. And when I did, it was almost like every illusion that I had about age and myself crumbled completely, where I actually started to feel the passing of time for the first time. And maybe that sounds a little bit more dramatic or scary than I'm meaning for it to, but it really put things into perspective for me, especially as somebody who, you know, my best friend passed in a tragic car accident when we were 14. So it wasn't like I wasn't aware of my mortality or morbidity or anything like that, but I just never felt old until I had my Saturn return. And then it was almost like all of the places that I would go out, I would be the oldest one. I started making really close friends who are much younger than I am. You know, like a few of my closest friends are 6 years younger than I am. And truly, up until this chapter of my life, it was like I always wanted to be older, and I was always the youngest. I was dating people who were much too old, and I was friends with people that were 6 to 10 years older than I was. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I always felt young, but I wanted to feel older. And now it's like I'm older and maybe not wanting to feel young, but just wanting time to stop passing so fast. It feels like I've committed my life in 2 to 5 year chunks to things or jobs or people or places. And my Saturn return really came by to slap me on the wrist with the ruler and say, it's time to wake up. It's time to get back into your body and your mind in this present moment and not keep allowing yourself to make the same mistake over and over again. So I want to tell you the story of my Saturn return now that it's coming to a close. Saturn entered into Pisces back on March 7th of 2023, which your Saturn return is technically the peak point when it meets the same degree that Saturn is in your birth chart. But you're in your Saturn return from the moment that Saturn enters into the sign that it is natally in your birth chart. Fight me in the comments if you want to. For me, I felt it before it started, and I'm sure I'm still going to feel the ripple effects of it after it's gone. So Saturn entered Pisces, left Aquarius. All of my people with Saturn in Aquarius, again, you can read the Star-Crossed newsletter. There's going to be insights into what that time period was for you guys. If you do not have Saturn in Pisces, everyone will benefit from reading that newsletter. But Saturn left Aquarius and entered Pisces on March 7th, 2023, and it is about to leave Pisces and enter into Aries on May 24th of 2025, meaning that we had just over 2 years of dealing with Saturn in Pisces, and it's not done. For all of my fellow Virgos, we get a little birthday treat when Saturn retrograde starts on September 1st of this year, and it won't be fully done in Pisces until February 14th of 2026. So I get a birthday and a Valentine's Day treat from Saturn, and I'm just like, you know, like I'm so done. I'm so over it. These lessons have been loud and in my face. And for the Saturn and Aries group, I hope that me sharing this story can help you guys for the next few years. because I went into it a total hot shot thinking, I know my birth chart. I broke up with my toxic Gemini ex. I moved into the right house. I've been taking my career seriously. Like, I had all of these preconceived notions of how I was going to sidestep around my Saturn return and kill it. And instead, it killed me multiple times over. So yeah, this is probably going to be one of the most vulnerable shares that I've given out to my community or put on the internet. So please hold this information with love and non-judgment and grace in your heart as I walk you back through my Saturn return. So right before it all started, this was late 2022, I had been away for nearly an entire year solo traveling. Like I said, I broke up with my toxic on and off Gemini ex. This is the same one that slept with one of my friends. And again, like, I look back on my past now and I'm like, thank God the most intense thing happened, so I would just have no choice but to not go back, right? Like, the younger version of myself really had so much hope in my heart that anybody could change. And even if somebody has hurt you, even if somebody has done you wrong, that they have the power to change and that the dynamic that the two of you shared could stick together again. And one of the biggest lessons that my Saturn return showed me is that you and everyone else enter into the lives of other people either for a season or a reason. And I just couldn't at that period of time comprehend, like, oh, I had opened my heart so much to this person. We've shared so much. There was such a synchronistic nature to us being together. You know, this has to work out again at some point. And then that happened where him and my friend both kind of did this trash took itself out situation, and they were both out of my life at the same time. And I was just like, fuck it. I'm putting my stuff in storage. I'm traveling the world. I'm going to all of these places that I grew up with parents that didn't have passports or extra income to share for vacations. So growing up and being a camper kid and a tent camper kid, it was like, I don't need to wait for my parents or a rich aunt or a wealthy boyfriend to do the things that I want to do with my life. So I go on this long trip, come back, feel really deeply in my bones that I'm not supposed to settle back into LA again. And at that point, I had been out here for 5 years. So I get back and I have a girlfriend that convinces me to stay in a lease. And she was like, even if you hate it, just break the lease, or, it's just a short period of time. Just please don't leave. Mind you, she and I are not friends anymore either. This was somebody who was much, much older than I was, and all pre-Saturn return. But late 2022 hits. And I figure if I could take myself all over Europe, all over Mexico, all over different parts of the United States when I'm out of LA and enjoy the time that I'm spending by myself, why can't I do that when I'm in my own city? So I forced myself. I was getting my hair done and decided that after I was done, I was going to play this little game with valet. And I asked valet, if I could keep my car here for a couple more hours, I'm just going to go walk and grab myself lunch. And he was like, oh, that's perfect. I'm actually valet for this restaurant right down the street. I just do this as a nicety for the hair salon. So I go to the restaurant that he technically valets for and end up meeting my partner. And it was in person. It wasn't on a dating app. It was after this very kismet, weird kind of little mental, energetic game that I was playing with the ballet. And I was just about to head out of town for one of my good girlfriend's bachelorette parties. So I was like, hey, I know we had a really good time getting to know each other, but I'm actually going to be gone for a week. And he was like, that's not a problem at all. Like, I would love to take you out when you're back. So we just have this whirlwind thing. You know, this is like 4 months before my Saturn return hits. And then the week that it does, my grandfather dies. And he, as my Saturn is in Pisces in my 11th house, but my grandfather was also a Pisces. He was a March 3rd baby. And I'm going to try not to get emotional about it, but he was and is the love of my life. Just the most incredible person. Never said an ill word about anybody, let alone me. I was the first granddaughter on both sides of my family, but I was the only granddaughter on this side. And it was almost like we couldn't say it out loud, but he was my favorite and I was his. When he passed, it was like this big wake-up moment for me where I had been preparing for my Saturn return for years, trying to get rid of because it's in my 11th house of hopes and dreams and friends and community and social media. So I figured if I get my dreams set up and on track and I'm also following my dreams and surrounding myself with the right friends and building community and starting to post online, that whatever happens during my Saturn return isn't going to be that bad. And then he died the week that it started. And again, living in LA, but having my entire family back in New Hampshire, essentially as far as you could possibly get across the country. I was like, oh, I'm not this invincible being. I'm not capable of working myself hard enough and doing all of the right things and trying to live this perfect life and portraying a perfect life. Like, I don't know. There's something about pre-Saturn return you that thinks fake it till you make it. And if I just prep enough, that'll be okay to deal with anything that life throws me. But the reality is that what Saturn teaches us is you don't have to handle all of it perfectly. You just have to show up. So I'm in this new relationship situation. My grandfather dies, and I decide I'm going to go home. I want to be there to support the rest of my family, and my family is all in the Catholic faith. So my ridiculous 27-year-old self goes back home. I'm the only person that doesn't read out of a Bible at his service of the night before. There was over 500 people in the middle of a snowstorm, literally wrapped around the block for hours, talking to all of these people that I had known my entire life about what an incredulous loss they all just went through. But it was truly one of the worst losses of my life, and still, brings up such a well of emotion. And it's difficult to share that. I feel like everybody's relationships with different members of their family is so different, but as an only child, I don't have that relationship with a sibling. Had kind of a dysfunctional parentified relationship with my parents, and my grandfather was like the one person in my life that no matter what I did, it was just him seeing so clearly who I was, and that I had a good heart, and that I wanted the best for everybody, and that I had potential. And never ever tried to dim my light. And then it felt like that was gone. So I get up the next day in a Catholic church with a fucking sweater from like Zara or something crazy with a turtleneck, but then one of the arms is missing. And I watch that video back like, once a year or whenever I want a really big cry. And I'm like, this is an insane thing to do. It's so funny, like the way that you mature through life. And I'm just like, even if showing skin doesn't make me uncomfortable, like why do I have to go back to my rural town in New Hampshire and make all of these people in a Catholic church like fear that I'm about to set on fire because my shoulder is showing? But I got up there and I gave like 7 minutes of my entire heart just poured out in this eulogy. And it was so well received by my family. And I was just in such a raw and vulnerable state. And I remember at that time with this new relationship, which relationships also with Saturn's influence, it's like commitment and longevity. Anyone and anything that you're committing to gets kind of brought to the light under the microscope during this time to be like, is this really the person that you want to commit to? And I was being given a clear as day signal when I was back home dealing with all of this, and he hadn't offered to come back home, didn't offer to take me to the airport, didn't offer to pick me back up. And I tried to call him one night after all of this because I'm just so sad and drained and wanting to talk to the person that I had been getting to know so intimately over the last handful of months. And he doesn't pick up. And then when he does pick up, he's like drunk with all of his friends. And I just saw into like the types of things that I had said yes to prior to this. And what Saturn does is put you in these crossroads moments of being like, are you still going to say yes to the things and the people and the dynamics and the jobs and the opportunities of the past, or are you going to pick better for yourself? Like it really feels like that tough love friend that's holding your hair when you're blackout drunk for the 5th time in a week, being like, do you really want to keep doing this? And if I could go back in time, I would have just been like, you don't have to pick me up from the airport. You don't have to contact me at all. But I was just so low. And that's the thing about Pisces energy is like everybody talks about the dreamy, ethereal, creative, sensitive, poetic aspects of it. But I always go back to like a Kurt Cobain or a Justin Bieber, and there's such an addictive tendency with that energy. And what I really started to see was an addiction that I had to the 11th house themes of like community, yes, but really like outside validation and connection to others outside of myself. And that all came to a head. So I get back to LA after closing out that chapter of my grandfather's passing. And it's maybe 3 weeks later. And my roommate at the time was a close friend of mine now, but someone that I had met on Facebook Marketplace. And we had only known each other for maybe 5 or 6 months at this point. Maybe not even that long. It was not very long. And she was also going through her Saturn return. Different house, different degree. But we both kind of jumped into this together. And she really heeded the call. And I congratulate her now on the other side of this for seeing it so clearly. But her chapter in LA had come to a close. And she tells me like 2 or 3 weeks after I get back, hey, I'm actually going to leave LA and I need to break our lease. And I'm like in such a depressed state from this death that I fully was just like, okay. I had no other words. I remember locking myself in my room. I was so irritated and angry and like looking up at the sky and being like, why, universe? Like, why are you doing this to me? And this is another clear indication. Like, I was given this crossroads when she said that she was going to move and break the lease of like, I don't have to stay in LA either at this point. It's early 2023. I'm like barely involved with this relationship. There's nothing tying me to the city. But she told me that she was leaving, and the only easy thing that I could conjure up was moving to another part of town. And I did it all by myself in the middle of a day, in the middle of a weekday. We broke our lease. She moved to New York. And a lot of my girlfriends at the time were living up in the valley or more east. So in my mind, I move up to the valley out of Santa Monica, which just, I'm not a spiritual bypassy, like trust fund kid, you know, like I don't fit into the tech world of Santa Monica at all. So I thought, I'll just move to the valley. Like, it's slower. It will be good for my nervous system. I'll be able to calm down after all of this loss and hopefully get myself back up onto my 2 feet so I can just hit the ground running and go, you know? Like, that is what my papa would have wanted for me. I'm not going to sit and sulk. He was such a light. He was always laughing, always telling jokes, always making other people laugh. And I was like, just invoke that energy into me, you know, like I need you now more than ever. And I move up to the valley and I'm closer to the guy that I was seeing at that point. And he was like, you know, I would have asked you to move in together, but I thought that would have been too much. And puts the whole like faux riz on. And mind you, like he is a Pisces rising. So the whole like words and actions just being totally misaligned with each other when it's in its shadow. And just playing into the themes of my Saturn return in Pisces. So I move up there. I call on one of my closer girlfriends at the time. We had been friends for like 4 or 5 years. We lived with each other through the pandemic. She would share clothes. We like went through so much. I picked her up from surgery at one point. It was like not this flippant surface level relationship. It was definitely a friendship that had memories and girth to it. And I remember reaching out to her after I move into this essentially bare apartment because I'm going from having one room with a roommate into a full, like, larger one-bedroom apartment that I have to furnish by myself. And I was like, dude, I am just hitting a wall. Like, I am probably in the worst state mentally that I've been in for as long as I can remember, probably since my best friend died when I was 14. So now, like, I'm, 27 or 28 at this point. And her immediate response was to use that moment of vulnerability and be like, you're such a needy person. I can't live in this cycle with you. Your emotions are erratic. You're all over the place. And by the way, you didn't check in on me when I found black mold in my guest house. You didn't ask me to go on double dates with you and your new guy. You didn't do just this laundry list of resentment. And this was after months of like cryptic tweets and like Instagram stories, just like high school stuff that I had called her out on multiple times because we had a shared friend, her like closest best friend, and I had started getting close over the last like year leading up to this. And that friend would FaceTime me, call me, ask me to do one-on-one hangouts, would go on double dates with me and the guy that I was seeing. And at every twist and turn, every single time that she and I were in communication, she would use it for an opportunity to shit talk this friend, telling me how insecure she was, how she was getting plastic surgery instead of doing things that would actually bring some sort of enlightenment to her life, that she thought that they were like sisters, but really it's more like a trauma bond and it's a toxic relationship, and that friend is stunted and she doesn't know how to break things off because it's been years that they've been friends and she needs help and she doesn't know if she's being too dramatic, and would constantly use me as the point of contact to talk through all of those things with. And of course, I'm feeling confused and cornered because I can see a lot of those traits that she was talking about, where I don't know why this friend is subtweeting and being cryptic and not able to hold hard conversations and doing things that are really insecure and immature. But I always tried to have direct communication with that friend and be like, this secondary friend has told me that the things that you're putting online are about me. Can we just talk about it? I don't know why you're upset with me, but I would love for us to have an open conversation. So on my end, yeah, for sure. Like, I was going through it 100%. And I know that that can be overwhelming for other people. But in a moment of death and loss and change to that caliber, it was like the thing that I asked was, can you please just come over and be with me? And to utilize that moment to be like, you're the most insecure, underdeveloped person that I've ever had in my life, and I don't like you. I don't like your behavior. I don't know how to help you anymore. I was just in a state of shock, honestly. And the secondary friend then, with no outreach, like I had not reached out to her, but obviously the two of them went and talked. She starts sending me texts so long that they're sending as files, telling me that I'm an awful friend to my original friend, her best friend, that everybody in the group knows it, that I'm underdeveloped, that I have no emotional regulation, that they can't keep allowing me to drag them down, that I'm uninvited to her wedding because my behavior is so erratic, and that nobody knows how to help me, but nobody in the friend group really wants to help me anymore. And mind you, this kind of secondarily, tertiarily spreads out to about 15 or 20 of us that would get together for birthdays, for holidays, for major milestone moments, everybody going to each other's shows and celebrating and congratulating the whole nine. So all of those people unfollow me. The original two that sent those heinous texts block me on everything. And I'm just sitting there in such a state, like I was so empty, and then lost even more on top of being empty. So I just felt like this concave being that truly had negative nothing left to me. And I took a few months and I was like, you know what? I'm a human. They're human. I'm just going to reach out and apologize for my part in it. And that original friend that I had had for 4 or 5 years responds and goes, this really means the world to me. And I just want to let you know that I've never doubted whether or not you were going to be successful. I've always known that. So I'm in my head thinking it's all good. Like, water under the bridge, we just weren't meant to be in each other's lives anymore at that point. Flash forward to maybe a week or two after those emails. And her and this other friend start a podcast. And I only become aware of this because one of our shared friends in that group of 15 or 20 people puts their promo video on her story. These are people that I've known for years. These were people that had seen me drunk, people that had seen me in love, out of love, people that had seen me naked and changing into an outfit before we go somewhere, people that I shared holidays and birthdays and so much of my life and my time with and my heart with. And they start a podcast, and truly, for nearly a year, it is cryptic bullying of how astrologers are snake oil salesmen, about their mentally ill friend, how some groups of friends never work, and there's always one victim or one person who just ruins it for the other two. I mean, it went so far as to one of the episodes calling me by name and accusing me of leaving low ratings on their podcast and loosely bleeping my name out and then just cackling laughing. And I'm telling you, I have truly never seen evil like that since I was in middle school. Like, the level of immature, angry, nasty, cruel behavior that truly just belongs to a 10-year-old that doesn't know how to speak their truth or share their emotions in a healthy way, or honestly knows how to tap into just being a kind and decent human being. So my Saturn return, truly, when I talk about the themes of the house that Saturn falls in your birth chart, I want you to look at that the most closely, because I feel so grateful on the other side of this for the fact that the true colors of the friends, of the community spaces, of the way that I was using social media, of the dreams and the hopes that I had, like all of that getting leveled out for me to finally rebuild all of it in a healthy way. But I went in so blind thinking, oh, I've already done the work. Like, I've let go of friends from back home that weren't nice to me. I've, started sharing more of my truth online in a way that feels good to me. My hopes and my dreams feel really aligned and healthy and from a good place. And then Saturn just came in and was like, hey, I know you thought you had this figured out, but there are snakes in the garden and it's time for a severing. Like, you can't stay connected to the wrong things and the wrong people and expect yourself to get to where you actually want to be and where you deserve to go. So it really was just like hit after hit after hit after hit. But at this point was where I started seeing things changing from it's all loss and it's all hard into the loss is serving a purpose and it's coming back around and creating momentum for that infinity symbol to be born, for you to finally go in the direction of the things and the people and the places and the opportunities that you want. And thank God that it did, because I had met one of my closest friends in a happenstance way on LinkedIn. I met another one on Bumble BFF. I met another one through a friend of a friend. And even the friend that introduced us was somebody that I did a podcast with. Shout out Kira. I love you. I miss you. But she also wanted to go to New York. I'm like, all of my close girlies are just getting swept up and brought over to the East Coast. I'm like, is this a sign? But then the friend that I was living with that moved to New York, she and I became really close friends. And another friend of mine that I met because she used to be a client of mine and now is such an incredible tarot reader and spiritualist herself. And I don't know, man. Like, when I tell you every single thing and person that I gave up during my Saturn return led me to the exact people and things that I had been down on my knees in those moments of loss, crying and praying for in the cheesiest ass way. And like, I would tell all of my close friends now, like, I prayed for a friend like you. Like, I had one of my closest friends, Amber, on the podcast recently. If you haven't watched the moon sign video, it's like the right people can only find their way to you when there is space to come and sit next to you. And for all of the continued cryptic posts about how I'm not the type of person that can hold a friendship or be wary of women who don't have a lot of friends or don't have friends from when they were younger. Dude, Saturn has constantly played that role in my life and gone, yeah, you can sit at the popular girls' table, but do you actually even want to be there if you're constantly just telling all of them, hey, we shouldn't say and do those things? Like, there's just such clear misalignment towards me and my heart and the energy that I was always surrounding myself with when it came to communities and friend groups until my Saturn return. And now I get to walk out of it with friends that I would call in any type of crisis, friends that I would call in the biggest celebrations, and I have. You know, like I remember getting together on my 30th birthday with close to like 15 people. And these were just the people that were in town and available that night, and cutting through my pink cake that said older, wiser, and hotter than ever with my short, new, fresh little bob. This was September of last year, still in the middle of my Saturn return, and looking around that table. And I went home that night and opened all of those cards and opened all of those gifts, and I cried. That was the first time that I was surrounded by people who would take photos of me, take photos with me, people who got me gifts that were so incredibly thoughtful, friends who got me gifts from different countries and that had sentimental value, and cards that I still keep in my lockbox because they're so heartfelt. And I'm free of garbage people. I'm free of people that don't align with my heart and can't allow me to need them as well and lean on them and give them or give me the level of support that I give to so many other people, because I've found people who do that same thing in their own lives, and they are givers too. And when you as a giver meet up with other givers, I mean, that to me is true infinite possibilities of love and connection and memories and moments. Like, I travel the world with my friends now. I have friends that are living in different countries and that I get to go and visit, you know, anytime that I have the freedom to do that. It's like, I am so deeply supported after this Saturn return. And I remember being so angry, like, why did this have to fall in my 11th house? And the beauty of your Saturn return is the minute that Saturn has closed and it's shifting into a new sign and you have all of that post-whipping clarity, it's like, oh, I'm so glad that it falls where it does in my chart. So, I mean, like I said in the newsletter, I'm going to share Saturn through the signs and Saturn through the houses so other people can gain insights into what this means. But I also kind of want to talk about the fact that this happens again in your 50s, your late 50s, early 60s. And again, even later down the road if you get the opportunity to live into your 80s and 90s. But we're never done learning lessons, and we're never done paying into the karmic cycle of our lives. And if I can give you any sort of hope and idea and understanding of what your Saturn return offers, it's just that reminder that you don't have to do anything perfectly. You don't have to be extremely prepared for everything that happens in your life. The great unknown is unknown for a reason. And the only thing that you have to do is show up, be authentic, listen to someone or something other than your egoic self, and trust that when you are in those crossroads moments, even if it is so far down, like in the tips of your toes and you can barely hear your intuition calling out to tell you what the right answer is, there's some part of you that already knows it. Like, I look at getting involved with that person who couldn't show up at the most pivotal point of my adulthood. And I'm like, this is not somebody that I want to get married to or have kids with. And even though we stayed together for a bit of time, it's like, I leave my Saturn return now, maybe having too high of standards for most of the general population, but I always come back to the fact that I'm a lover girl. Like, I only need it to work with one person. I don't need my standards and my being and my interests and my values to align with everybody if I only want to spend the rest of my life with one person. And that it's also okay to explore dynamics that are temporary. We don't need to take away the value that exists in the temporary nature of things. It's okay for us to go out into the world, and I really encourage it. Go out into the world trusting that good things are coming your way, and trust yourself enough to know that you will have the discernment when you are put into the experiences that test you to answer correctly, to set boundaries in a way that upholds your self-respect. Trust too that if you're in the wrong job, or you're in the wrong city, or you're in the wrong friend group, or you're connecting with family members that aren't healthy for you, that you're being given a new day, whether you're in your Saturn return or not. But this is really what Saturn is trying to teach us all of the time. You're being given a new day to make new decisions. So I leave my Saturn return knowing that all of the things that I thought were punishments to me were actually the greatest blessings, and the removal of parasitic beings and thoughts and beliefs and things that I just couldn't see clearly at that point in my life. Like, you have to be gracious with yourself. And I think the one big thing that was lacking in that blow up between that old friend group and I was that I pride myself on being extremely understanding, and I require people in my life to be understanding with me too. Growing up parentified and needing to act like a wise adult from the age of 5 onward, I'm burnt out, and I'm allowed to make mistakes, and I'm allowed to fuck up. We all are. And if you're not doing things with ill intent and you truly are learning from the mistakes that you make, be patient with yourself and expect that the people that say that they love and care about you around you will be understanding. And if they're not, take that as Saturn smacking your wrist with the ruler. Like, when you see new information, new data points about the people in your life, note it. Take action. Let go of the things and the people that don't feel aligned with you. Saturn is always in the sky as well, so even if you're not in your Saturn return, there is always something that Saturn is trying to teach us. When it shifts into Aries, I think the big thing that's going to come forward, because Saturn in Pisces to me was really like, where are your boundaries, Saturn? Too fluid, Pisces. Where are the things and people that you're committed to, Saturn? Addictive in their patterns, Pisces. And can you create, Pisces, solutions, Saturn, that actually work for your better good, for your betterment, for your highest potential? And I think that's a lesson that we have all collectively had to come to terms with, especially with the way that our country is and the way that the world is shifting. Like, we can't overly course correct to high levels of fear and conserving tradition and expect that that extreme is any better than the extreme of too fluid, whatever that means. It's a testing ground. And I think that the testing ground that we're walking out of is that, and into Saturn and Aries, which is really going to ask us, where can we get more passionate and commit to the things that light us up? Where can we see our own codependent behaviors and instead shift valiantly into independence and like a protective nature, right? Like Aries is a warrior. It is ruled by Mars. So when we have that Martian influence over Saturn now for the next 2.5, 3 years, it's really going to ask us to get loud and proud and bold in the way that we take risks, and to understand that the only people that are going to benefit during this time are the ones that are willing to take the big leaps in the direction of authenticity. It does not matter how fast you go, as long as you are going in the right direction. And on that note, I have some very exciting announcements about my own personal life and chapters that are closing, some of the same chapters that were brought up that came to a head during my Saturn return. So I hope that you'll stay tuned for more. There is so much more in this crazy, exciting journey of life that I hope to be able to utilize and alchemize and channel and give back to all of you through my own lived experiences and my years of study. But I highly recommend, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, to jump over onto the Star-Crossed newsletter that I host on Substack. So it's themeganrose.substack.com. I have it linked on all of my socials. There's just so much that I want to share with you guys, but as it's in this incubation period and it's just getting started and it's not yet ready to be born, I hope that you'll stick around for the journey. And if the only place that I find you is here on the podcast, on either of those platforms or on YouTube, I would love to hear from you about where Saturn is in your own birth chart, the sign, the house, if you know both of them. Leave it in a comment. If you have the time and you enjoyed this episode or any of the others, it means the absolute world to me to see a 5-star review, comments, any sort of feedback. And I always want to bring you guys what you want and what you crave. So please let me know. There's many, many ways to let me know what you want to hear about. And the episode that we have next week is going to be so fun. So I hope to see you again soon. I hope that your Saturn return is less loss. And if it's the same amount of loss, I hope that it's even more lessons. But at the core of it, I just hope that you're giving yourself grace and that you're okay with cutting out the wrong people and things, and that you can trust enough in yourself to know that life is never and has never meant to be perfect, but it was always meant for you to learn and experience and derive joy from, and you deserve all of that and more. So thank you for sitting with me. Again, I'm your host, Meghan Rose. This is another episode of Star-Crossed Podcast. I hope to see you again next week. Bye, guys.